In Arsenal's most shocking game of the season, our title hopes have taken a decisive blow. Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton outclassed us, Mikel Arteta was left fuming, but what do Arsenal have planned next? Today we'll get a massive update on Arsenal's potential £180 million spending spree. We'll also get an update on Joao Cancelo, find out about Arsenal's season-ending injury, and who is the player the Gunners have offered a third contract. Yo, what is going on guys? My name is Babs14, welcome back to your boy's channel, and oh boy has it been a really weird few days. But now it's all about Arsenal's next steps. So as per, smash a like on the video if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and do help your boy on his road to 200,000 subscribers. But starting off with Arsenal's season ender, Arsenal vs Brighton at the Emirates Stadium was always going to be decisive. And that was made even more clear when Man City beat Everton 3-0 away at Goodison Park. With that, Man City moved 4 points clear top of the Premier League, and that made this game even more must win. But we can't forget the opposition. Despite losing to Everton, Brighton were in decent form. They had just beaten the likes of Man United, and they had very impressive underlying numbers, the third most expected points. Tactically in this game, Arsenal had to be on spot, and unfortunately that was not the case. The atmosphere around the ground was very weird, and that definitely translated onto the pitch. The players were indecisive, these guys were confused. The Arsenal players got their press entirely wrong. Arsenal were not going man to man. They were sitting off Brighton, understanding their qualities, but we paid way too much respect. And Brighton were doing the opposite. These guys were being aggressive on Arsenal. They weren't giving us any time on the ball playing out of the back, and that was not helped in the absence of Alexander Zinchenko, the highest Arsenal player in terms of ball progression numbers. You take out him and Saliba, and Arsenal had severe problems. The key tactic in this game involved Martin Odegaard. De Zerbi understood that he is the go-to Arsenal player, and that's why he had Levi Colwill go man to man. And this was so intense that at times, Colwill was pressing all the way as a striker. That aggressive approach was causing Arsenal massive issues, and the stats do all the talking. Brighton had 59% of the ball, 541 passes completed, and 40 final third entries. Yes, the field tilt is slightly in Arsenal's favour, but Brighton were the better team. These guys came to the Emirates Stadium and they paid no respect. They were playing out of the back as casually as it gets. The confidence was oozing, and it just showed the fragility of the Arsenal squad. Yes, we have a fantastic first team, and when those guys are fully fit and available, as we saw against Brighton at the Amex, Arsenal were resounding winners. But take out a few important parts and the squad falls apart. The likes of Kieran Tierney are fantastic players. This is not a matter of player quality, but it's more a matter of player profiles. As great as Tierney is, he does not have the same profile as Zinchenko. So up against a very good tactical team, Arsenal had to adapt, and ultimately they failed. This is a key area where Arsenal aren't the level of Man City. With all their squad players, they have the ability to replicate the squad dynamics. Very rarely does Pep Guardiola have to change the way they play, and that's been a bit of a problem. By not rotating over the course of a season, Arsenal have made the least changes to the first 11, and that means every time a player does come in, they always find it very difficult. But even the first team reliable players are struggling. Prime example, Benjamin White. Up against a pacey winger like Cairo Matuma, he was clearly struggling, and this has been a theme over the course of the season. With him having the frame of a centre back when he's up against pacey wingers that are very nimble, White is not as agile as a normal fullback, and that's why he was getting caused problems. Even the likes of Leandro Trossard were not at their normal standard, replacing the injured Gabriel Martinelli. He's great when he's playing as a false nine. Playing as a left forward, Trossard wasn't as effective. He's not as explosive as Martinelli, and Moses Caicedo was having a field day against him. But the main concern was once again the defence. 3 goals conceded is unacceptable, not when you're fighting for a title against the robots of Man City. The Arsenal fans were in shock, so many actually left the stadium. This goes alongside the theme that we've seen all season. At the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal are not good defensively, and there are only 5 teams in the entire league, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leeds and Southampton, that have conceded more home goals than Arsenal. Yes, the likes of Kiwior has stepped up, but he is not yet of the level of William Saliba, and the numbers themselves are telling. With Saliba in the team, Arsenal conceded 25 goals in 28 league games. Without him, it's been 17 goals in just 8 games. It's not to say that the defence was perfect with Saliba, but we have clearly missed Saliba's authority, the ability to play as high a line as possible, to squeeze teams in sustained pressure. We've lost our ability to dominate. The fact that Brighton had nearly 60% of the ball only sums that up. We've also seen the impact of a lack of experience. In games where Man City haven't been perfect, they've been able to get themselves over the line, and the prime example was the game against Everton. Despite Everton having an XG of 1.71, Man City only 0.8, they won the game 3-0. The experience of Ilkay Gundogan being in those scenarios, this guy turned up. In the case of Arsenal, it was somewhat a similar story. Arsenal's XG 0.8, Brighton's 1.95, but where it was 3-0 to Man City, this game, it was 3-0 to Brighton. If Arsenal were ever going to win a title, it was always going to be a bit of luck involved. We had to keep our key players available. We'd survive without Jesus, survive without Partey, but William Saliba was the glue, and taking him out of the team affected so many squad dynamics. And here's how the title race stands. Man City on 85 points, Arsenal on 81. City 4 points clear with the game in hand, and this weekend they have a chance against Chelsea at home, where if they were to win, they will be crowned Premier League champions. And Arsenal of course play before City, and a game against Nottingham Forest where they have to win if they want to stand any chance. As hard as it is to take, my friends, the title hopes are all but over. We thought this was our year. So many moments have gone our way. The goal from Reece Nelson against Bournemouth, Jorginho's shot against Aston Villa, Eddie Nketiah against Man United. It felt like this might have been our year, but ultimately speaking, in the most decisive part of the season, Arsenal have had a collapse. They have taken just 9 points out of the last 21 available. Many people are now asking the question, has this Arsenal team bottled the title? But here's the way that I look into it. Arsenal have had a collapse, but there are clear reasons behind that. Man City are on course for a 94-point season. That means if Arsenal wanted to win the title, we'd have to get 95. Last year, Arsenal only had 69. To go up to 95 points, that's 5 points more than Invincibles. Ultimately speaking, Arsenal are not as perfect as Man City, and that is totally understandable. This squad isn't ready to get 95 points. Very few teams in the history of the league have been, and where Pep Guardiola had the entire squad and the tools to do it, Mikel Arteta was working with the bare bones. And the games against Man City were decisive. Here's a very interesting fact. Against the 18 other teams in the league, Arsenal have won 81 points out of 33 games, whereas Man City have only had 79. Whereas City have only had 79, but they got 6 points out of 6 against Arsenal. And that has been the difference. Even if we beat Southampton, West Ham and Brighton, Arsenal is still behind City on goal difference. That's why even though right now hurts a lot, I can also see why Arsenal aren't quite there yet. And if this year is not meant to be, the goal for next year is even more obvious. To win a league title against a Pep Guardiola Man City, we will potentially need 95 points. But what are you guys thinking? Do you believe that Arsenal have bottled the title? Or do you understand the context of where Arsenal fallen short? Now let's move on to Arsenal's next steps. After the game against Brighton, Mikel Arteta sent out a very clear message to his players. He says that you cannot do what we did in the second half. If the team is capable of doing that when it comes to the biggest stage, there are a lot of things that we need to think about and analyse. Arteta was clearly fuming, and he now knows it's time to be ruthless. This next transfer window is going to be gargantuan, and David Ornstein agrees, saying, I think it's going to be a huge summer for Arsenal. Looks like they're moving quickly to get stuff done sooner rather than later. Arsenal realise they can't mess about. They realise the quality of Man City and how hard it is to win a title against them. And that's why, according to Gary Jacobs, Arsenal have cleared Mikel Arteta to break the club's spending record this summer in a splurge that may exceed £200 million. The funds are going to be available, the owners are not messing about, and the targets are there to be seen. And according to Santi Aouna, Arsenal are chasing a right back, a centre back, a central midfielder, a winger and a striker. The fullback area stands out straight away, with the uncertainty around the future of Kieran Tierney. According to Matt Lowe, Arsenal have interest in signing Manchester City fullback Joao Cancelo, but fears City will be more reluctant to do business with him this year. It remains to be seen whether Cancelo will have other options to consider, or whether Guardiola will be prepared to keep him at the club. It seems that Mikel Arteta has identified Cancelo as a key target this summer, and you can understand why. Cancelo is one of the best technical fullbacks in the world, and having seen how some teams have pressed Arsenal this season, Cancelo would offer Arsenal a ball carrier from deeper areas of the pitch, but also experience of having been there and done that. This guy has won multiple Premier League titles, but Mikel Arteta will have to also be careful. There's a reason why Man City are selling him in the first place. There are some reports that Cancelo is a bit of a diva. Some reports go as far as saying that Arsenal and Man City are in talks to swap Kieran Tierney and Joao Cancelo. The future of Emile Smith-Rowe is also in massive doubt, and according to Simon Collins, Arsenal are due to hold talks with Emile Smith-Rowe about his future at the end of the season. 11 appearances all season, 0 starts in the Premier League. From 10 league goals the year before, there's been a clear drop-off for Emile Smith-Rowe. He has been very unlucky with injuries. He has not scored at all this season, and even though recently he has been fit and available, Mikel Arteta has been reluctant to throw him on. Now at 22 years of age, ESR does have a long-term contract, and the fact that he was given the number 10 shirt shows how highly Arsenal valued him. But the question then becomes, where does a fully fit ESR fit into this Arsenal first team? Because against Brighton, Mikel Arteta threw him on in the place of Martin Odegaard, the right-sided number 8. But would he be a long-term starter over the Arsenal captain in that area? I have my doubts. But you also have the future of Granit Xhaka, and this news is a bit surprising. Out of contract in 2024, we have a bit of breaking news from Fabrizio Romano, as he confirms that Granit Xhaka is set to leave Arsenal at the end of the season. There's been no negotiations over a new deal, and the plan is to part ways in June. Bayer Leverkusen are in advanced talks to sign him, a €15 million fee, and Fabrizio understands the personal terms are almost agreed on a 4-year deal, to June 2027. So many reports coming out of Germany and the UK confirm that Arsenal and Xhaka have come to a conclusion. A brand new contract is not being offered, and Arsenal believe it's time to cash in. Now at 30 years of age, Xhaka has been a mainstay in the Arsenal team going back to the days of Arsene Wenger. And if and when he leaves, next year might be the first time that we see a full Arsenal 11 without an Arsene Wenger player. It would be an end of an era for an Arsenal player that's had so many highs and lows, but he would be going out with his head held high. This year he's been transformed into a more box-to-box midfielder, and with 14 goal contributions, Xhaka has stepped up. Even though I wanted to see him stay for at least one more season, a departure is imminent, and Arsenal have identified their perfect replacement: West Ham United's Declan Rice. And according to Matt Law, Arsenal are putting together a club record offer worth £92 million for Declan Rice. West Ham will want as much as possible of that fee paid up front, and Arsenal remain confident they can agree a deal with West Ham and land Rice this summer. Negotiations are ramping up, things are happening, and even Fabrizio Romano confirms that Arsenal are preparing an official bid for Declan Rice in the next few weeks. £92 million as a first offer is a serious move. That is Arsenal being aggressive, an indication that he is their main target, and they want him as soon as possible. But as Fabrizio says, this is not something that is imminent because West Ham's intention is not to negotiate right now. They want to focus on the Europa Conference League final, they want to focus on the final games of the season, and then in June discuss the future of Rice. But Arsenal will be there, and they will attack the situation of Declan Rice, and it's now their priority. There's clearly been a lot of talks going on behind the scenes for a very long time, and even the reliable Team News and Tick says Arsenal provisionally agreed deals with both club and player months ago. The upfront fee was less than being quoted, and likewise the wages. Of course things can change when it's not put on paper and signed, but they've been talking for months. West Ham understand that even though there's a lot of competition, the player has a clear desire to go to the Emirates Stadium, and with that being their club captain, they want to respect his wishes, and with him having only 1 year left on his contract, there's only a certain amount they can demand. But Arsenal aren't stopping there, and according to Alex Crook, they will go big for both Declan Rice and Moses Caicedo this summer. You can totally understand why Mikel Arteta wants both players. They are both very versatile, able to play as a number 6 and a number 8. But as we saw against Arsenal at the weekend, Caicedo can also play as an inverted right back to very good effect. A 7.5 rating, 1 clearance, 1 interception, 5 tackles, 13 out of 12 ground duels, 2 out of 2 in the air, and 34 out of 41 passes completed. This is why Mikel Arteta is such a massive fan of Moses Caicedo. He can do so many different things, winning duels in a defensive third, being a secure passer in the midfield 6, but also able to carry the ball into the final third. This guy would be Mikel Arteta's ultimate midfield Swiss Army knife, able to cover as a right back and a central midfield. Caicedo would be a 2-in-1 signing, and that's why according to Gary Jacobs, Arteta wants both Rice and Caicedo, who could cost a combined £180 million. Now let's move on to the other Arsenal news today, and starting off with a very unfortunate season-ending injury. Gabriel Martinelli was forced off against Brighton after a poor challenge from Moses Caicedo, as David Ornstein confirms will now miss our final 2 games of the season, as he has suffered ankle ligament damage. The 21-year-old Brazil winger ruled out for a number of weeks, but should return for pre-season ahead of a new campaign. This injury here is devastating in many ways. Not only has Martinelli been so important for Arsenal this season, with 15 league goals Martinelli will be unable to break the record for the most Premier League goals by a Brazilian in a single campaign. But what about the future of Reiss Nelson? Well, according to James Bench, Arsenal have made a 3rd contract offer to Reiss Nelson as they push to keep the 23-year-old. Nelson had said no to Arsenal's first 2 offers, but Arsenal aren't giving up. They have a clear desire to keep the player at the Emirates Stadium, because they see his clear and obvious potential. We saw it against Brighton. That explosive ability to take his man on is the closest profile that we have on the left hand side to Gabriel Martinelli. So even though it was Trossard that came on against Brighton, I believe in the next few games, starting Reiss Nelson as a left winger could be the better profile to replace Gabriel Martinelli. You've also got nominations for Arsenal duo Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka for the PFA Premier League Fans Player of the Year. The Arsenal captain and the Arsenal star boy have had standout seasons, but in the case of Bukayo Saka, you can see a clear drop off in the past few weeks. With the amount of games this guy's played, it seems like he's burnt out, a bit out of ideas, and that is exactly why going into next year, Arsenal need to have the squad depth in that area to give Saka some sort of rest. But that is the video there, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you have, don't forget to smash a like and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to follow your boy in all of his social medias, then the links are down below in the description. But that was all of today's latest Arsenal news, and after our most devastating loss of the season for Arsenal, it's all about getting the next steps right. So let's see what they have planned, and I will see you next time. Take care, in a bit.